Love, Death and Robots Season 3, every episode ranked. It's finally been released. 9 episodes with different art styles, different stories, and moments that really encapsulate the show. With all of the new episodes being released in Volume 3, I thought I'd put them all up against each other and rank them from worst to best. So let's get into it. Here is Love, Death and Robots Season 3, every episode ranked. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Number 9, Night of the Mini Dead. This episode wasn't bad, but it's nothing that I could put higher than last on this list, just purely down to the fact that it offered far less than what others did. It was an entertaining watch, an interesting concept of a zombie apocalypse in a mini world that essentially caused the entire planet to crumble. It was humorous, definitely not scary, and made me chuckle at the end. I appreciated it for what it was. Number 8, Mason's Rats. Mason's Rats was one that I thought was okay, but I'm not sure it 100% landed. I thought there were different arms to it that I thought were quite good. I thought the idea of something becoming outdated quickly, losing its purpose, and needing to move on and upgrade was something that shone through well. And I also liked the message about how one can often see past what is unnecessary and causing devastation, put differences aside, and agree to disagree. Mason was seeing the sheer amount of devastation and harm that the robot was causing to the rats, and he in turn destroyed the thing that he put in place to destroy them, after sitting there and watching it all unfold. The art style was one of the less realistic ones, and I feel like the runtime was well suited to the style of the episode that it was. Any longer could have definitely made it feel like it was dragging out slightly. Number 7, Kill Team Kill. Kill Team Kill was one that I would put on the side of comedy at its core, but not necessarily in its execution. A group of soldiers were taking down a cyborg bear that had essentially been designed to be indestructible, and of course it went rogue. This one looked extremely interesting, and its score was something that I felt really complemented certain moments, such as when the ante would get upped and the battles would commence. We were led to believe that the bear was indestructible, and it pretty much was, picking everybody off one by one. Even right at the end, when we thought it was destroyed, it still had something up its sleeve, and that was the fact that its eye popped out and exploded. It was a moment that did make me laugh, and despite conflicting with the tone of the episode, the comedic undertones really allowed the episode to fit perfectly and stand out. Number 6, The Very Pulse of the Machine. This was an episode that I did enjoy quite a lot. It reminded me of the art style from Volume 1, the episode Fish Night. The art style chosen really allowed the episode to flourish in what it wanted to achieve, hallucinative visions that the character was seeing. We saw Martha and Burton on a planet carrying out one final task before they planned on heading back. However, a disruption caused the car to overturn, and caused Burton, Martha's partner, to die. This led Martha's oxygen levels to run low and have to connect to a lifeless Burton in order to survive. We saw all throughout the episode Martha was taking certain actions which in turn would cause her to hallucinate. The IO that she had running did warn her all throughout the episode that this would happen. I thought this episode definitely achieved what it set out to. I liked the journey that we went on with the main character, and the fact that we were constantly guessing whether or not she was hallucinating, or if the planet itself that she landed on was actually wanting her to give up her physical form to live on eternally on the planet. I also loved the connection between the planet saying how its intentions are to get to know you, and we heard Burton become the voice of that, because the planet knew that her voice specifically would allow Martha to believe, act, and give in easier. Despite being one of the longer episodes, it certainly didn't feel it. It's a good one-off, but not one that I'd necessarily revisit. It served its purpose well, and I felt fulfilled with what was given. Number 5, 3 Robots Exit Strategies. Coming in at number 5 is the sequel we were all after. I'm not going to place it higher just out of pure nostalgia and recognition, as I know it would be easy to. I thought that the story was actually easier to understand and felt like it had more of a purpose than the first installment. The idea of seeing how the apocalyptic world impacted 3 different class groups, the regular folk, the millionaires, and the billionaires, was extremely interesting. It had a powerful message in the sense that it was insinuating how we're going to get the planet to the point of devastation and then be at a point of no return, especially when we need it most. I thought the characters were just as funny as before, and the different personalities shone through well. The fact that at the end of the episode, we as the audience were almost bluffed throughout, in the sense that the cat from season 1 and the species of the cats were what destroyed the human race, was actually quite amusing, but I don't think it retracted away from the deep, powerful message that it wanted to land. Number 4. Swarm. Swarm was an interesting one for certain. The animation was one of the better ones. The concept was extremely interesting in the sense of the humans wanting to learn about the swarm and see if they can manipulate them in order to replicate what's currently successful, creating an ecosystem of life that just allows people to operate without necessarily being sentient beings. We heard how this happened with the springtail species. They took an interest in the swarm and were absorbed by it. They bred a far superior species that rendered them to the point of devastation. It seems as though the Doctor's intentions were not those of good ones, which we heard earlier that if the Queen feels threatened, then you're definitely not safe. Up until then, we had Galena, who had been a contributing member to the swarm, in not wanting to exploit or benefit herself or any other species from what she was doing. But when the Doctor arrived and revealed his true intentions, Galena started to contribute, which then changed the way that she was treated. We saw how the swarm punished her for doing so, and also himself for leading in it. They viewed them as a threat, so they had to be dealt with. Up until that point, they were safe, as no wrong had been done. But due to the revelation occurring, Galena had become absorbed, which allowed the swarm to understand everything they could about the human race. And for the Doctor to be put in a situation of betraying the human race, which we saw him do, I thought the moment where Galena snapped back out and we saw a sense of who she was, and the pain and suffering that she was going through, was a moment that really stood out in this episode. The visuals at the end as well were something that made the episode stand out for all of the right reasons. This was definitely one of the better ones for sure. Number 3. In Vaulted Halls Entombed. This was actually an episode that surprised me. I didn't expect to enjoy this one as much as I did. This episode was based on a short story and it took a different turn to what I expected. A group of soldiers were sent to go and retrieve a hostage, but when they arrived, they ended up seeing something far more threatening and it cost the lives of everybody that was there. First of all, they encountered these cyborg spider-type bugs that were quite literally petrifying. The sound of them crawling embodied what I would describe as a shiver-inducing feeling. It was really quite something. It felt like they were put there with the intention of luring the soldiers away and claiming as many as they could in the process in the most gruesome of ways. As the Sergeant and Harper managed to make it out alive, there was a mysterious call luring them closer. This was in fact the mythical creature Cthulhu, that's made an appearance in many things across the years. It was begging to be freed, and I feel our first introduction to the creature was a powerful one visually. I also thought that the moment we saw Harper got hypnotized, when looking directly into its eyes and witnessing all of the devastation that it can cause, and has caused in the past, was extremely harrowing, and the high-pitched noise ringing throughout really added to the moment. Even more so, the thing that I thought was the most powerful was that she used all of her rounds on the creature and also the Sergeant when he was going to free it after being hypnotized, which then meant that she had none left for herself, which she referenced in her intentions a few moments earlier. We saw a climax where Cthulhu was begging her to be freed, and she was doing her best to resist. This then led her to cut out her own eyes to avoid being cast under Cthulhu's lure, so she wouldn't free it. It was a moment that I definitely didn't expect, especially after it faded to black and then re-entered. It was a great episode which embodied what the show stands for, providing a moment of pure excellence and a gut-hitting feeling right at the end. Number 2. Jibaro. This was the episode that I was looking forward to the most, and I actually predicted it to be my favourite. It wasn't far off. This episode followed a deaf soldier in a forest where soldiers are lured to their death by a woman in the water who lets off a haunting scream that means that people cannot resist their actions. However, due to the soldier being deaf, he was able to avail and not get lured in. We saw the woman intrigued by the fact that he didn't fall to her spell, and she went on to chase him down after he avoided her. By this point, I thought the episode was really good. The style of it was something that I thought was really interesting. The way the lens was used as a way of capturing blood, and also the fact that it felt almost handheld at points, was an interesting approach that I think worked. I also appreciated seeing it from both perspectives, the deaf soldier and also everybody else. As the episode went on, we saw the woman approach the soldier again, but this time she started cutting him, which ultimately led him to knocking her out and taking all of the gold, jewels, and silverware off of her. We saw later on that all of the gold that she was wearing was from the soldiers that she killed at the bottom of the lake, which I thought provided a moment of clarity, especially seeing as though the soldier took it from her. It seemed like a way of taking back what belonged to his people. However, she eventually ended up back at the spot at the beginning, and as the soldier was taking a drink of water, which had transformed into her blood as the river was essentially hers. This led to the soldier getting his hearing for the first time. This moment for me was incredible. You could really sense the fear, confusion, panic, frustration, and incomprehension that he had after hearing for the first time. It was executed so well. The ending with her being able to claim back what she believed was hers, and the soldier becoming one of many at the bottom of the lake now that he had his hearing back and was susceptible to her lure, was a great way for the episode and volume to finish. Bleak, yet powerful. Number 1. Bad Traveling. My favourite episode in the entirety of Season 3 was the second episode in the volume. I found Bad Traveling to really encompass everything that's great about Love, Death and Robots. We follow Torin, who's a captain of a ship, who was initially thrown to the creature that had taken it over, called a Thanapod. He was thrown there by his crew as almost a sacrifice. However, he managed to bargain a deal for his survival. This episode contained a dark tale that was executed really well in a small runtime. I loved the meaning behind why the captain was gradually picking off his crew one by one. The moral decision around saving yourself whilst sacrificing an entire island of people, or risking yourself to destroy the very creature that is below the deck. Nobody stood with the captain, and I thought that the reveal at the end where everybody voted to doom the island that the Thanapod was seeking to get was so powerful. You could sense the divide before it was even said due to the fact that the crew were trying to kill the captain and appease the monster, but he was always one step ahead and onto it. The art style really suited the haunting, mysterious, dark tone that the episode had. The voice of the captain was also something that I thought was an extremely strong, convincing performance that made the episode stronger. The ending for me, where the captain explained to the Thanapod that he would not be arriving at his destination, and he then proceeded to light the ship up in flames and narrowly escaped, was something special. The slow-mo running with the orange flame that was the complete contrast to the darkness that we'd had all episode was visually stunning. It was a fantastic episode that was easy to follow, had a strong meaning and message, and was engaging and left me wanting to watch more. That's when I think you know a Love, Death and Robots episode hits the spot, when you could watch a feature on it, and this one I most definitely could. So, there you have it, the episodes from Love, Death and Robots Volume 3 ranked from worst to best. What would you say your favourite episode was? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.